My name is Joseph Richberg, Senior Data Architect at Penguin Random House. On today's Azure tutorials, we're going to discuss how to process your Azure Analysis Services Cube from a Logic App. Let's begin. Here we are in the Logic App. This one is triggered by an HTTP post by another event. Actually comes through our event grid and fires this job off. Now, before you can finish the Logic App, you've got to create a shell Logic App with a name. And then what you have to do is you have to contact your Azure admin and tell them that you need a secret key, give them the Logic App name, because they have to register the Logic App, right? So you have to save a shell of it, give them the name and tell them you need a secret key and you want this Logic App to be able to process cubes on the specific Azure Analysis Services, because they need to make this app an admin on that service. If you don't do that without the secret key, you can't request, the server won't even talk to you, and without access, the server won't talk to you. So you can get one of two errors. I think the error is the same, but both of them are caused by your security clearance. Now, once the admin returns you, we get a Word document that has the tenant, the client, and the secret in it. We simply copy and paste them into variables, then create another variable called status and another variable called inChecking. Status is a string that's empty, and still checking is going to be a Boolean. So once you have all this information, you're going to start your cube process, and it's basically an HTTP post. You're going to post it to a somewhat specific URI with some slight tweaks. So the tweaks are going to be this word here. So we are in East US 2, so our region is East US 2. If you're in West US 1 or in Europe, you have to change that section. Then the rest stays the same. You need to change this to the actual server you're requesting the cube to be processed and the actual model. So one of the things is you can't go and say, oh, I want to process every model from the same post. You can have this Logic App, because it's an admin, this Logic App is capable of refreshing any model on that server, but you can only do one model in a given post. So you'd have to have multiple posts to do multiple models. So once you have that done, this is the layout, the body, it's the JSON. You're simply going to replace a whole bunch of these. You're going to do a comma and then more and comma and comma and comma. The structure outside of it stays the same. I will grab this and put it in the description below so you could just copy and paste. Now, once you have the database and the widgets, oh, by the way, this model matches that. Once you have all the tables in the database you want to process, your authentication is going to be Active Directory OAuth. It's going to start as none, but that's the one you want. And here is where you're going to put the tenant, the client, and the secret that you got from your admin. Now, the audience is always this, *azure.windows.net. I originally thought it was the same region. It's not. You just put asterisk. Now, one more thing to remember. This is an asynchronous process. So once you start the process, it fires off a message, and there, somewhere in the Azure cloud, starts a thread or a little process which is responsible for managing this refresh. Now, you need to get that address back because this will fall right through. Once it's posting, succeed or fail, it falls right through. And you need to say, okay, I asked you to start it. You need to tell me where that process lives so I can ask it when it's done what the status is. And the only way to get that is from the location tag in the JSON. But you're not going to get the location tag unless you go to settings and turn this off. So it seems a little counterintuitive, but if you don't, you must do that. And then you hit done. And that tells this post to remind the end, whatever end unit receives it, send back a location tag. Now you have to extract that. So what do? You're going to parse JSON. So here's another JSON specific frame, model, not model, I forget what they call it. It's a JSON specific, I don't even know what they call it. I will post this down below in the description, and all you want to do, schema. So all you want to do is copy and paste the schema that I'll post in the video into here, and it will work. And you're going to extract it from the headers. Now, once you have that, you're capable of looking at many, many things. So there's the date, there's the location that you're interested in, the server, the transport type. Don't care about any of that. Now, once I have the location, I've got to set a variable. And this is basically a flag variable for our loop. And it's Boolean and it's true, meaning I want to continue to work. You'll see how that works in a moment. Now, I always use bool when I'm doing true-false. I started doing logic apps, I think last year, and it seemed weird. I had situations where I put, quote, true or just true, and when I was doing my Boolean comparison, it wasn't working right. So going forward, I say, whenever I'm doing Boolean, I always use the little bool function. Now, remember, this is an asynchronous process. So I've got to basically poll the process to say, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? And if you are done, or when you're done, what's your status? So to do that, I have an until loop. So here's the still checking, and I'm going to loop in this until my still checking is false, right? So I start my still checking as true, and I want to loop until it's false. That's the first break. Now that's if all goes well. There's also something called limits in here, and let me fix this. So the limits are basically, I would call them stopgaps, just in case you have an issue. So here we do a delay. So here I'm counting 1 minute. So let's say I count 5 minutes. So if I think of this, there's 60 iterations. So if I am 5 minutes per iteration, it's 12 iterations per hour. So you would say 12 into 65. So I have 5 hours. So it's either until this is true or 5 hours elapse. However, there's another piece, and that's a timeout. This is, I guess, in case you get stuck in a delay you didn't mean to. Let's say you put delay of 5 weeks accidentally. This timeout says 1 hour. So if this is counting, this will actually exit out after 12 iterations, because 5 times 12 is 1 hour, right? 5 minutes times 12. So what you want to do is you basically want to make sure that both your count and timeout match your delay. So in this case, I should have 5 hours, right? Which means I'll have 60 loops, 5 hours, 60. That's how I like to do it, but it's a stopgap measure. Now, what do I actually do in this loop? So I wait 5 minutes, and then I actually ask for the status of my job. And here's where the location comes in, right? I told you had all date, location, server, all this information. But all we care about is this location. You will get a null for this location if you forget to change this up here. So if you forget, it'll bite you and remind you that, because it'll say that's an invalid URI. It's like, wait, location, I parsed it. Nope, there's no location. You choose Active Directory OAuth, you put your tenant, same audience, client, and secret. And this will go out and pull the current status of the job. Now this is another JSON schema, I'll post it in the description, that you apply to the body of your get, which is the location. And you want to extract, of all the items you want to extract, really, all you're cared about is the status. The other stuff is really good when it fails because it tells you where it failed, but for this, you only care about the status. Now, I always use toLower because in progress is capital I, capital P. And there are situations where I forgot that, typed lowercase I, uppercase P, and this looped and looped and looped, and after like 5 hours fell out, and I'm like, why is it taking 5 hours? Started looking through all my code. Why is the cube processing longer? And realized it wasn't the cube itself. It was actually just this was failing. The check status was not properly checking. So I make it toLower to guarantee that there's no mistyping of anything. Now, if it's not equal to in progress, then I want to stop. At this point, I don't care what the status is as long as I'm not doing something, right? So in progress means it's actually working. It stopped working for some reason. Now I got to exit out. So the first thing I do is I set my variable to false, meaning I'm done checking. The next thing I do is I set my status, and I set it to lower going out of the loop. That way it's set. I don't have to worry about it. because later on I want to do some checking and some additional logic based upon my status. So I've determined it stopped processing. Now, what exactly did it do? So I've got to validate the actual status. Now, I have if my status is not equal to succeeded. So the way I like to do logic apps is if everything is good, I want to fall right out and do work in the main logic app. I want to restrict how much work I embed in all these little conditions, because eventually if I had to add an action here with another if, there would be a true false and a true false, and it gets really nested. And what happens is when I do this, I have no idea that there's anything else embedded in here. So I want to stay away from that as much as possible. And to do that, I say if it's a good status, fall through, continue on. If it's a bad status, do something and stop. So in this case, all I'm really doing is I'm sending a failure email, and then I'm saying, okay, I want to stop my process, and it's a fail. And that's it. Everything else goes on its merry way. So really, you need these series of objects from the validate up to process a cube. And that's it. So again, I'll put all the schemas in the description. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like me to do a video on, say, the event domain that we have set up to help drive this, please leave a comment below, like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.